Welcome everyone, I'm Ari Lax, and tonight we are going to be recording with a deck that got second in the poll of different options I put up a little while ago, and that is Gift Storm. Gift Storm's actually, it's old and new at the same time. So a lot of the technology from this deck is actually recycled. I want to say James Zorns, who went, if you want to flash back to about 7-ish years ago, went by the name of Jayway on Magic Online, was notorious for building a 66 card Scapeshift deck when you couldn't play the Ravnica Shocklands in extended at the time. So you could have Scapeshift in a green-blue Cryptic Command Shell with enough mountains to actually kill your opponent. But I think he played a Gift Storm deck at some Modern Grand Prix. I want to say it might have even been the very first one in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska. The gist of what was going on with that deck is that if you have a Goblin Electromancer in play, and actually couldn't have been the first one because Electromancer was not a card then. It's probably a little later. If Electromancer's in play and then you cast Gifts Ungiven, just the chain of events that occurs after there makes it really easy for your opponent to die. Usually Gifts plus a Ritual is close, like you have to have a little bit more finagling. I think it's like Gifts plus 2 Rituals is the hard lock to kill your opponent. Because you end up plus, even if you only have 2 lands, that's 7 mana off of that, and then you Gifts, which only brings you down to 4 mana. You get Past in Flames, Morphos, all this other stuff. You can actually Ritual, Mana Morphos, Electromancer, Gifts is lethal as well. Just the endgame situation is that you Gifts for one of each of your mana producing cards and a Past in Flames. And then after Past in Flames resolves, all you have to do really is to have a red mana floating. And then you can recast all the rituals you had, all your mana morphoses, draw cards, all your cantrips. It's just super easy from that point for the game to be over. You also get to recast the gifts, and then the final end, your gifts is both the enabler and the finisher. It's like when you Infernal Tutor for Past in Flames and Legacy, and then you Infernal Tutor for the tendrils. The end game here is that you Gifts and you get your second Past in Flames, Grapeshot, and some other stuff, and then you flash back all your stuff and you Grapeshot them. Pretty straightforward. What brought this deck to the forefront relative to other builds? So the deck existed and then it just kind of fell to the wayside compared to other Storm decks. The reason partly was that Gitaxian Probe made Pyromancer Ascension just so much better because there was only 4 Electromancers. It was also just really hard to cast an Electromancer and untap with it, which you really need that untap step with Gifts. But now that you can play Barrel Chief of Compliance as an additional Electromancer, you have a bunch of ways to reduce costs. If they kill the first one, you can potentially just find a second one and cast it. It's really easy to set up the turn that you need to have with Gifts Ungiven. Without a cost reducer, that turn is very hard to have. So, looking at this exact deck, you have 18 lands, which is kind of stock for Storm decks. But without Probe, it actually... So when you had 4 probes in your deck, and your deck played like a, 56-card deck, I did the math, and it comes out to... It felt like a little more than 19 lands in a 60-card deck. So this deck does have issues with being land light at times. Spire Bluff Canal is a pretty big add. Between the loss... So with Probe leaving and Spire Bluff Canal jumping into the deck... one of the things this deck used to worry about a lot was sometimes it get raced by aggro, and you're basically starting the game at an extra couple life every single game, which makes it really a lot harder to just get outright raced. You'll notice a Hallowed Fountain that supports some sideboard cards. I was going to say Burn, this helps you against Burn, but it doesn't because Eidolon just kills you and there's not a lot you can do about that. Though this deck is a little better against Eidolon, not a ton. It's a little easier to you can cast spells that don't kill you when they have Eidolon and potentially Grapeshot out of the way, but I would not assume you reliably beat that card. Moving along, we've got cantrips, a little less than usual, again, because Probe is gone, because you don't want Thought Scour without Pyromancer Ascension necessarily. It loses, just being draw a card isn't as exciting. And the self-mill, when you're just Past in Flamesing, and a lot of your kills are just confirmed kills from cards in library, is a lot less exciting. You don't need to pick up the extra card or 2 of value. I have opted for a Faithless Looting tonight. I think that's a card that's kind of criminally underplayed in Storm. It's just really, really powerful in terms of getting you to a critical density of spells. and with all the cost reduction, the flashback just becomes very reasonable. Remand is a card that one of the things that the gift shell allows you to do, because it takes you less physical cards to kill. You just need those 3 cards. You don't need to like ritual, ritual, cantrip, cantrip, or other like do all this nonsense. It's just ritual, ritual, gifts. The game is over. Um, you can afford to expend a card on interaction or have a little bit of dead weight in your hand, and that's what Remand comes in. Remand also lets you do these short Grapeshot kills, where you can Grapeshot for like 7 or 8 off of in-hand Past in Flames, and then remand. If you didn't flashback the Grapeshot, if you were just casting from your hand, you can then remand the Grapeshot, the original one. All the copies still resolve, and then you pick up the Grapeshot and you cast it again. Um, the math on that is your first Grapeshot does damage equal to the number of spells you'd cast before it, and the next one does that many plus 2. So it's like if you cast, usually amounts like 8 spells before the Grapeshot is 18 total damage. That's and 16 with 7 spells before. Those are like the 2 kind of critical numbers, but it depends on your opponent's life total. Also, it just helps you fight opposing combo decks. The requirement that you do have to untap with an Electromancer. You're not just like straight going off once you cast it most of the time. So you can often like cast Electromancer, pass with Remand up, and then untap and kill your opponent. That kind of stuff. The deck's a little more. It wants that effect a little more against opposing combo decks, and it's a little better at utilizing it than before. There's a Merchant Scroll, which is really just an extra copy of gifts that should go over here, but I kind of had it in the cantrip bin. Standard 12 rituals, they don't let you play more. They're just all great. A couple Grapeshot, you don't really need to draw a grape. I mean, Storm didn't usually play more than 2 Grapeshot, but you don't really need to draw a Grapeshot. You just have to, because sometimes you do when you get to remand kill them. 2 Past in Flames, that is required for the combo kill for the most part. If they put the Past in Flames in the graveyard and give you rituals, you would be unable without a second Past in Flames to gifts and for sure get the Grapeshot. You can have an Empty the Warrens, which is just kind of there. It's nice to draw. It's not bad to have. I don't think you really ever gifts for it, but it's like pre-sideboarding a little with a card that you don't mind having. And then the 8 cost reduction dorks. Moving to the sideboard, again, I kind of browsed and listened through together some things I like. So I like Dispel. Again, I was talking about counter spells in this deck. Being able to interact a little better, Dispel's really good at that. Also worth noting, Dispel helps trigger Baral Chief of Compliance, so the loot on this card is actually a real thing in this deck. You got some bolts for cheap interaction. You got Wear Tear as your kind of answer everything with a Shattering Spree as the bonus anti-artifact answer. That's like a real solid hate card. You got extra Empty the Warrens. Your game 1 plan is soft to enchantments and artifacts that interact with the graveyard, as well as like Surgical Extraction. But if you just empty and make like 10 goblins, most decks that are doing that just lose the game. You don't actually have to go through Past in Flames or Gifts Ungiven. I have some Reckless Bushwhackers to kind of augment that, to make it a faster combo if you're playing against like a fast deck that might have Graveyard Hate, but I don't know. We'll see on this one. It was a thing back at the first Modern Pro Tour to do this with the Goblin Bushwhacker. Thinking about it, yeah, I saw this on a Magic Online list. I'll try it out. We got Blood Moon. Some lists have a bunch of Blood Moons. I only like 1 or 2-ish. I think drawing too many Blood Moons is bad. I don't think it's even an auto win against the decks it's good against. So kind of off having a ton of this weird hate card. And then Anger of the Gods is again a way to slow down aggressive decks alongside Lightning Bolt. So Storm is pretty straightforward, but it's a lot more flexible here than you normally see it. I think that is one plus for this deck, and we'll see how it plays out.